Please stand as you are able for hymn number 16 in your hymnals. 'Tis a gift to be simple. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. My name is John Benarowitz. I am head of the Building and Grounds Committee here at the church. Today, our minister, Reverend Leonetta, is out of the pulpit today. We have a guest speaker, John Considine, Reverend John Considine. I'll give you a little bit background on John now, and then he will come up for the sermon later. John was educated at Villanova University with a bachelor's, and later received a Juris Doctor from University of Florida, which is where he lived much of his adult life. He was in private business and also served in the Florida House of Representatives from very early in his adult life. I think he's 27 years old was when he was elected to the Florida House of Representatives and served. And ran for U.S. House of Representatives at one point as well, and narrowly defeated, essentially because he was too progressive for Florida and back in the day. So that part of Florida back in the time. And John has also relayed to me that one of his more memorable and prouder moments was serving and standing in DuPont Circle, washing the tear gas away from protesters' eyes who were protesting the Vietnam War in Washington, D.C., as some of his early progressive actions, and that he'll speak more about as part of his sermon, too. With that, I'd like to extend, in addition to welcoming our guest speaker, a special welcome to any other visitors today. Please join us in the lower level after the service for coffee and introductions. There will be a welcome table for new members down at the lower level afterwards if you're interested in receiving some information or talking with a member of our membership committee. During the service, we also have supervised nursery for babies and toddlers and religious education classes for children and youth. Natalie Case up here in the front row is our religious education coordinator. You can see her for more information. And if there's any reason you need to leave the service in the middle of the service, there are locations both on the lower level where the service is simulcast and broadcast. You can finish the service there if you'd like. Our UU principles begin with our pledge to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. As we are a welcoming congregation, we welcome into our community people of all races, sexual orientations, belief systems, and ages, including any who are fidgety and create youthful noises. These little humans represent our future, and we welcome them fully in our meeting house. And now we have a couple of announcements beyond what is already in your order of service. Yvonne, did you want to come up and yeah. Oh, and Betty, a twofer.
Yvonne, what are you doing?
I'm training for the Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield Crop Hunger Walk.
Oh, when is the Crop Hunger Walk?
It's coming up. It's on Sunday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, in downtown Farmington. Registration is at 1 o'clock and the walk begins at 1:30. There's a 2-mile walk and a 6-mile walk. It sounds like a lot of fun. And we walk with people from other churches in our area.
Ooh, I'm glad that you're walking too. If it's not too late, other people can sign up for the walk, right?
Right.
Are there any people here that have their folders for collecting money for pledges? Aha, okay. Well, Yvonne and I too. Good. All righty. Okay. Did you know that 25% of the funds raised go to the 4 local pantries? It goes to CARES. We had done this last Sunday for the church donation. They're in Farmington Hills, Neighborhood House, Salvation Army, and Yaz Ezra, which is the only food pantry in Michigan that provides kosher foods. We're working to add a Muslim community garden soup kitchen too. The rest of the donations raised go to Church World Service, which does good work around the world. We have a chance to make a difference in our community.
What can somebody do if they aren't able to walk this year?
Okay, you can make your pledge donation to the people that are going to be downstairs, and they'll be looking for you, and you can look for them. Thank you. Remember, Yvonne and me will collect your pledges, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. A 2-person show. Our UUCF players, thank you. Now, Paul Denowitz, an announcement on our pledge drive.
Good morning. My name is Paul Denowitz, and I am your chair of the fundraising committee. And I just wanted to give you kind of an update of where we are. The fundraising pledge drive will end the 28th of September, or 28th of April. What month are we in? I just got back from Mexico, and I can't tell what month it's even in, or close to. What we're doing this year, the pledge drive will end, as I said, and then it will go towards the dollars that you have pledged will go towards the decision-making of what the salaries and the building and grounds and the dollars that they will give. So it's critical that everybody support the church and or pledge as you can. Right now, the total is $143,790. We have 40 pledges in. There are still 52 pledges out. Our total goal this year is $230,000. So we're halfway there, and we certainly need your support. There are several critical issues that are coming up. So please, like myself, I have to fill out my pledge form today. So if you haven't done so, please do so today and get your pledge in, and I will appreciate it, and so will the church. Thank you very much.
there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace between neighbors and peace in our homes. And if there is to be peace in our homes, there must be peace in our hearts. May the light created by our chalice flame lead our way to create peace. Next, Natalie, do you have a story for all ages this week?
So the children are welcome to join me up front here. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Okay. So, today our story is about wholeness. And wholeness is like when you take a whole bunch of parts of things and you put them together and you make something new, something whole. So this story is about an old man who was on his deathbed. So that's a pretty important time in a person's life, right? They're about to leave this world. And he had a whole bunch of sons. And the thing was is that his sons fought a lot. And so he was thinking about, what is it that I could say to my sons before I leave this world? And what he did was he told them about what happens when you work together. So if you work together, it's like all of these sticks together. They're individual sticks, but when you join them together, they're one. So if you try and break this, it doesn't break, right? Yeah. You try and break it, Lucas. It's really hard to do, right?
That.
You want to try?
You can just break one stick, but not all of them. I can break
Exactly. Right? So you want to
know
try?
why.
Why? Well, the rubber band is keeping them together, right? Okay, so let's try. Do you want to try? See if you can break it? Right. But you were right. What if we try one stick at a time? Oh, that was pretty easy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
There
He
you go.
was broken.
Nice, you got it. You
Jill,
wanna try?
look, I broke it with my knee. I put it together.
Yeah.
I put it together. Oh.
Nice. So I was thinking about it. What sorts of things in our church do we do together that maybe we couldn't do all by ourselves? Can you think of anything? Yeah, that's true. Like if you sing, you can sing by yourself, but if you sing all together, it sounds like a totally different song, right?
Yeah.
It's louder, it's more full. Do you know the thing I was thinking about is actually our play structure that we have. Listen. Was our play structure that we have out front that we put up. Remember when we were putting that up? And I remember when we got the boxes, it was all of these big, huge boxes. And, it was like, okay, Miss Natalie, figure out how to put this together. And if I'd have been left to do it by myself, it would probably still be in boxes. But George came and John came and Nathan came, and it took us a couple weeks, but we worked on it together and we were able to put it up. So it's like that. Sometimes you have to do things together. Kind of like the project we're working on in class. It's going to be much easier to do together than if one of us just tried to do it all by ourselves.
Putting that swing set up had to be multiple people because they had to stand at different ends of it.
Yeah, like one person would hold one end
Before creation, a presence existed, self-contained, complete, formless, voiceless, mateless, changeless, which yet pervaded itself with unending motherhood. Perhaps I should have called it the fullness of life, since fullness implies widening into space, implies still further widening, implies widening until the circle is whole. In this sense, the way of life is fulfilled. Heaven is fulfilled, earth is fulfilled, and a fit person is fulfilled. There are 4 amplitudes of the universe, and a fit person is one of them. People rounding the way of the earth, earth rounding the way of heaven, heaven rounding the way of full life, till the circle is full. We give generously to support this church where love, justice, and equality inspire our acts of service and compassion. We dedicate these gifts to all that we stand for within the Unitarian Universalist tradition. A perfect heart is one that has known love and loss, joy and sorrow. The perfect heart is one that has been shared. You are invited to share your first name and a joy or a sorrow as we gather in our heart's perfection. We, as the beloved community, will direct our energy, prayers, and meditation to you as our gift of compassion and strength. You may light a candle acknowledgement of a spoken or silent joy or sorrow.
So it's time to meditate. I invite you to close your eyes if you prefer, or to leave them open as you wish. And you might think of all those people in your life, friends, people who may not be as close as friends, associates, business people in your life. You might think of people that you have no taste for, or people who might consider you an enemy. You might think of your own challenges in life, physical challenges, financial challenges, your own difficulties in life, and know that of the 7 billion people on the planet, there are undoubtedly millions of people just like you and just like me in our suffering, in our challenges, in our difficulties. And so we offer this meditation of Buddhist origin for all of us. May we all be safe. Take a deep breath and know that. May we all be safe. All those people who are challenged like I am, all those people who might be enemies or consider themselves enemies, all my friends, may we all be safe. May we all be healthy. With a nice deep breath. May we all be peaceful. May we all be loving and feel loved. With a nice deep breath. May we all experience happiness and ease in living. May we experience safety. May we all be healthy to the greatest extent that we can. May we be peaceful and live in some modicum of peace as we breathe deeply. May we be loving and have the experience of love. May we experience ease as much as possible and happiness. For all those families suffering from tyranny in Central and South America and other parts of the world, may we join with them. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be peaceful and offer peace to others. May we all be loving and feel the experience of being loved. May we all have some ease in our life as much as possible and experience happiness. Breathing with our fellows around the planet, may we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be peaceful. May we all experience love and be loved. May we all be happy and experience some ease in our living.
If you turn to 128 in your hymnals, we're going to sing verse 1 and 2 only, For All That Is Our Life. And in the spirit of Reverend Leonetta, you can sway and stand as you're able. So every song is a swaying song.
For
now one last part of the introduction I did not mention up front was in his early life he served on the Florida House of Representatives, and in his later life, it was 1997, he was ordained through the Unity Village and Unity Church. May I now welcome warmly Reverend John Considine.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Awesome. So great to be here. I see a few friends here. Hello. Hello. Awesome. And a whole bunch of people I'd love to have as friends. That would be you, yes. Grand, just grand. Reverend Leonetta, thank you so much for having me here. I know she'll be watching or listening at some point, and my Reverend Leonetta and my dear friend Michael have been friends for many years, and I've been so blessed to be in their home and to get to know them and to be in community and do some work together. It's just great. It's just great. And such an honor for me to be here in this beautiful facility. This is a gorgeous facility and church and community. I understand now that this is the oldest Unitarian Universalist church in Michigan, 160-some years, 167 years. This is a wonderful congregation. And Diane on the piano. Yeah, you. Yeah, thank you. You're so beautiful. You play so beautifully. Thank you. Set a nice tone. Grand, just beautiful. Well, so I like to start off with a little bit of humor sometimes, and so this husband and wife of many years were preparing for bed, and she was under the covers, and he was just toweling off after a shower, and he was looking in the full-length mirror, and he said, "Oh, honey, geez, look at me. I used to have a good physique I was so proud of. I had pecs, and I had six-pack abs, and all my muscles were in the right places, and now look, everything's gone south. I'm flabby. It looks like I have women's breasts, and most of my hair is now gone. I'm mostly bald, and hair growing up in places like my ears and my nose where it shouldn't be growing. I'm so depressed. Can you look me over and just say one thing, honey, that's positive about me, might make me feel better?" And she looked him up and down, and she said, "Well, one thing's for sure. There's nothing wrong with your eyesight." When I first heard that joke, it was about a woman standing in front of the mirror, and I told it to my former wife, and I said, "What do you think about that joke for church?" She said, "I think it needs a gender switch. It'll go for a lot better." I've learned to listen to wives and former wives a lot closer now. So in the 1960s, I think as some of you might remember, we had a number of slogans that we loved, a number of favorite slogans and sayings. Give peace a chance certainly was one. You can't trust anyone over 30. That was probably true, and we ended up proving that one ourselves. Make love, not war. And then we did both. That was probably our favorite, though, except for the war part. Go with the flow was another one, and I never fully grasped what that meant. It sounded woo-woo to me. Well, today we're going to explore that saying, the idea of surrendering into the flow of life, getting into because there is a flow of life, which we can get, like the zone. You know what, if you're an athlete or a golfer or a tennis player, you've been in the zone. You know what it's like when you're not thinking, you're just hitting the ball, right? When you're mowing the lawn, you've forgotten all about the stuff that you have to do this week, and you're just watching the machine, and you're just watching the leaves go wherever. There is a zone we get into in life, in every area of our life. We're talking about that today. We're talking about that today. Because it turns out that surrender into the moment, this moment of now, is one powerful way to make life easier. There's a kind of a fun illustrative story about the man who went to a psychiatrist. And he said that every night, a 12-foot dragon with 3 heads visited him. He was a nervous wreck. He couldn't sleep at all and was on the verge of a total collapse, he said. "I think I can help you," said the psychiatrist, "but I must warn you that it will take a year or two and it'll cost $30,000. $30,000, the man exclaimed. "Forget it. I think I'll just go home and make friends with it." Resistance to what is can cost us a lot more than $30,000, is one of the things that we can learn today. To illustrate, let's look at the story of the Taoist farmer. Now, I know many of you have heard this story. When I first heard it, I guess back in the 1980s, it was like, oh, wow, how interesting. And I've heard it a bunch of times since. You probably have too. And I invite you to listen with Zen mind, beginner's mind ears, like for the first time. Listen, even though you've heard it before, listen and see what's new for you, what you might learn from it newly. Because there's all these stories that make the rounds of Buddhism or Taoism or Christianity and all the great philosophical systems are there for a reason. There's something we can learn from them. And so listen with fresh ears if you've already heard this story before. So in this Chinese village, there was a Taoist farmer who was the wealthiest man in town because he had a beautiful Mustang, beautiful horse. And everyone would gather around, all the villagers. He was the only one with a horse. And they'd say, oh, you're so lucky to have this beautiful Mustang. And he would say, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. And then one day, the Mustang jumped the fence of the corral and ran off by itself out into the hills. And the villagers all gathered around, and they said, oh, you're so unfortunate for you that your horse has ran away. The Taoist farmer went, maybe yes, maybe no. Well, about a week later, Mustang comes roaring back toward the corral with about a dozen beautiful wild mares trailing behind it. And he brought them all into the corral. And the villagers gathered round, and they said, oh, you're so fortunate. You have all these mares now. But Taoist farmer says, maybe yes, maybe no. And then a couple days later, the Taoist farmer's son is out trying to break some of the wild horses, and he is thrown off a horse, and he breaks his leg. And that's a very dangerous thing because there's not a lot of hospitals around to repair a leg like that. And the villagers all gathered around. They saw how sad it is for you that your son has broken his leg. Maybe yes, maybe no, says the Taoist farmer. The next day, the Red Army comes through town, and they're gathering up and conscripting all the young men to go off and to fight the Mongol horde that is attacking from the west. And they take all the young men of the village, except for the son of the Taoist farmer. And all the villagers gather around, and they say, how fortunate you are that your son wasn't taken to fight in the war. And the Taoist farmer says, guess what he said? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no. What would have happened, I wonder, if the farmer had chased after that Mustang and brought it back and not allowed him to find the mares? What would his life have been like then? He wouldn't have known about if he tried to control that situation. In other words, have you ever tried to control a situation? Or am I the only one? And we'll never know what might have happened if we just take a deep breath with me, just released, and been present in the moment, and just, let's see what happens. Maybe yes, maybe no. What would have happened if the Taoist farmer had forbidden his son to ride the wild horse? He might have gone off to fight the Mongol horde and never come back again. It's very wise for us just to surrender into a moment of now, to accept life on life's terms, just to accept life as it appears in this moment, and then at this moment, and then at this moment, each moment at a time. When we practice non-resistance, we can find peace of mind and possibility thinking. This is really important. Really important. Steve Jobs used to talk about meditation being, Steve Jobs is, with the iPhone people, Apple. He used to say that the beginning of his creativity was with meditation and getting into the moment of now. And that's where the creativity started. Total possibility thinking is what happens, see, if the Taoist farmer lets his son ride the wild horse. All kinds of possibilities for himself and for him having grandchildren that would not have been there otherwise. So non-resistance is the expression of trust and faith in a higher intellect, wisdom. We live mostly, if you look at it, and you're open to looking, I invite you to just be open, to look at this stuff like a possibility. Maybe it works for you, maybe it won't. But we live mostly in our rational minds, which is built upon events of the past and memories of the past, and also in our limbic brain, which is our flight or fight response brain. We live down there with our fear-based thinking much of the time when we're honest about it. And very often, better answers can be found in a higher area of the brain. Letting go of my resistance is a choice that we make, not with a sense of regret, but in gratitude that we can set aside the human ego or rational mind for just a while, and allow a higher aspect of mind to assess the situation from a non-reactive viewpoint. The reactive mind wants to do this, wants to do that, wants to change things, wants to fix things, wants to prevent this, wants to protect her, wants to protect him. The non-reactive mind, when we just sit back and relax, take a deep breath and look, calls upon the prefrontal, the powers and the intellect of the prefrontal cortex. So we can get into a whole conversation about that. And the merging of the hemispheres of the brain opens up, not possible when you're in a reactive mind, but possible when you take a deep breath and just relax and just accept things as they are in this moment. Merging the logical side of the brain with the creative side can be accomplished through this idea of surrender into the moment and releasing resistance. This comes in handy these days for me when I watch the news. My reactive mind can get very, very busy. I can get so judgmental and resistant. Can you relate? I mean, all this outrageous things in the news get me so upset. Like all these people are always attacking the White House and our president, a man who's trying so hard to make America great again. And they're always, I think I got some of you there. You went, what? That's the reactive mind that just went, what? And for those of you who are going, yeah, that's the reactive mind too. So we all take a deep breath now and accept whatever feelings just came up and whatever thoughts were there. What's he saying? He shouldn't have said that. Just, okay, that's the reactive mind. Now we just take a deep breath and accept what just happened, what was just said, and now we be in the moment. It's a powerful place. Surrendering into the moment allows the brain to clear, the limbic area, the lower regions of the brain, and allows more powerful regions of the brain to open up. And for those of you who believe in, some of the mottos along the side, remembering God, celebrating being, a higher being, rooted in source, it opens up higher expressions of life even than a higher area of the intellect, of the brain. So, you see, me being upset at the president or any other politician has never changed anything for the better, not yet at least. My upsets with them just haven't changed much. However, when I can merge both sides of my brain and just come to a place of peace and move out of my limbic brain and my rational mind, then I can get a good idea or two on what to do. This past summer, fall, I got very active when I was asking, okay, I don't like the way things are going, but I can go yell at the stars to get them to change, and nothing seems to happen when I do that. But if I just, I just breathe, what can I do? What can I do? And what came to me was that I could be very active in the campaigns of some very progressive people for the Congress, who believe in a lot of things that I believe in. And they won. And they're making a difference now. So differences can be made that way. But if I was still railing at Washington or Lansing or whatever, I'm not so sure I could have accomplished as much as if I just relax. And knowing that acceptance and surrendering into the moment opens up a higher way of being. Yeah. One of the biggest acceptance problems that I'm facing in life, and maybe some of you are going through this as well, is accepting the cycles of life. The cycles of life. My mom used to say, Johnny, getting old isn't all it's cracked up to be. And a friend of mine says, anyone who thinks that our elder years are the golden years is colorblind. I know that all too well. I love this lovely story of an elderly woman and her little grandson, whose face was sprinkled with bright freckles, who spent the day at the zoo. And lots of children were waiting in line to get their cheeks painted by a local artist who was decorating them with tiger paws. And then the little girl in the line said, "You've got so many freckles, there's no place to paint," she said to this little guy. He was embarrassed. He dropped his head, and he was all ready to cry. And his grandmother knelt down next to him, and she said, "I love your freckles. When I was a little girl, I always wanted freckles." And she traced her fingers across the child's cheek. "Freckles are beautiful," she said to the little guy. The little boy looked up and he said, "Really?" "Of course," said the grandmother. "Why, just name me one thing that's prettier than freckles." The little boy thought for a moment, and he peered intensely into his grandmother's face and softly whispered, "Wrinkles." One book I've read says acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Or at least it's the beginning of the answer to all my problems today. Acceptance frees us up to do something intelligent. I sometimes think of the story of the time I stepped out into traffic, and I was in the bus lane, and I looked, and there's a bus coming. Well, the bus wasn't due. The bus wasn't due for quite a while. What's the bus doing here? There's a bus coming right at me. I could have sat there and argued with the bus that it shouldn't be there. What's it doing here now? Or I could take a deep breath and ask a question. Okay, accept this now. Now what? Once you come to surrender into, oh, there's a bus coming, now you have power. Now you have choices. I think I'll go this way. And you can avoid the bus. That's like a graphic description of the power of being present now and letting go the reaction. Stop arguing with reality the way reality places itself. I have a dear friend who tells a sweet story of her 98-year-old grandma. She went to visit her to take her to lunch, and she said, "How are you, Grandma?" "I don't know," she said. "My eyes don't work. My ears don't work. My teeth don't work. It's hard to walk. I have a rash. I can't remember things." And then after the simplicity of her litany of ailments, she comes back to the present moment and says, "I'm getting old. I think I'll comb my hair and put my lipstick on. Let's go out to lunch." It was just so graceful and accepting of her current position in life. Like, she got it. Okay, I accept this as it is. I accept my feelings about it. And thirdly, now what? Now what? Surrender into the moment makes life easier. It gives us some power in life. We don't have to stay stuck. And it means, number one, it's a 3-step process I recommend. Could be 12 steps, but I boiled down to 3. Accepting what is happening and what just happened. Number 2, accepting my feelings about what happened. And number 3, asking, okay, what now? So she just got angry and threw something and stormed out the door. Okay, I can accept that. I'll stop arguing with myself that shouldn't have happened. And now, how do I feel about that? Okay, look at my feelings about it. Okay, good. Take a few deep breaths and just ask, okay, now what? Now what? Maybe I don't have to yell. Maybe I don't have to scream. Maybe I don't have to throw anything back. Maybe I can just be here and see what opens up, what Spirit has for me, or what my higher intellect has for me. Because getting it back on the sidewalk, getting out of the way of the bus, getting getting away from the catastrophe that could happen if I reacted, or if we reacted to those situations, is very powerful. I know we just came through I want to say a pretty icy, cold winter. Thank God, isn't it great outside? So beautiful, so wonderful. Well, a friend of mine told me one Sunday morning, she said, I was on my way to church after a huge rain and ice storm. The radio station was warning folks not to go out due to black ice everywhere, but the pavement just looked wet to me. And I had never heard of black ice before, so I left the house unaware of what was in store for me. Anyone here ever come across black ice? Yeah, so you know what she was about to go through. So once she said, I was out on the road, Pat writes, friend in Chicago, Pat says, I was on the road, I realized I was in deep doo-doo. There was no way to turn around. The roads were a sheet of ice from curb to curb. Fortunately, she writes, there were only a few other cars on the road. Just ahead, I saw a car stopped at the stop sign. I couldn't figure out how he got his car to stop, since the road was so slippery. Then my fear set in. I couldn't control or stop my car, and this other car was stopped ahead of me in my path. I couldn't figure a way out of this pending accident. I was sure I was doomed. Oh, God, I said, figure a way out of this so nobody gets hurt. And once I accepted the fact that I was sliding and there was a car there, and I just kind of relaxed, she said, the other car just simply pulled away and from the stop sign. And she says, duh. Yes, the road conditions were ugly, but until I truly accepted my position in the situation and asked a higher consciousness for help, it sure looked like I was going to hit the other car. And what she actually did was she took a deep breath and relaxed into the moment. And she allowed the situation to play out. If she had, as you know, if she had gunned the engine or stomped down on the brakes or turned this way or that way, she might have gone off the road into a ditch, but she didn't. She stayed with it. She just stayed with it, and the situation cleared for her. Being awake, you see, and aware and accepting in each moment, surrendering into each moment, accepting our feelings in the moment, and then asking, okay, what now? What now? That's empowering stuff. Now, I want to make a note, just a quick PS for this. Surrendering is not resignation. It's not becoming a doormat. Resignation is surrender to fate. Acceptance is a surrender to all the possibilities. Get that? Yeah. See, resignation is surrender to fate. Oh, I'm just gone. I'm not smart enough. What a mess my life is. No. Acceptance is surrender to all the possibilities of life. Resignation says, I can't. And acceptance says, with wisdom and friends, I can. Resignation says, it's all over for me. Acceptance asks, okay, what's next? Resignation says, what a waste. Acceptance says, what lessons have I learned? There's nothing to do with resignation here today. Acceptance throws you to work eventually, once you stop the wrestling match in your mind, in my mind. But it's productive work, not just flailing around. Surrender into the moment makes life easier. And Reinhold Niebuhr, I think he was a Lutheran many years ago, said, acceptance allows change. The acceptance mode, he said, includes everything, even my judgments, even accepting when you're judging yourself. Does anybody here besides myself judge yourself harshly? Yeah, yes, okay, so you can accept that. Oh, there I go, judging myself again. There I go, shaming myself again. Just breathing, relaxing. Okay, I can let go of that now. I really can. So it allows me to accept everything, including my own judgments about myself and others. It allows me to be okay now, and I love this. It allows me to be okay now, even before I reach my goals. Because I bet you I'm not the only person in life who's thought, if I can just get there, if I can just accomplish this goal, then I'll have proved my self-worth. Then I'll be okay. Then it will be all right. No. Like just right now, acceptance says, no, you're okay right now, even before you get to your goal. And then he says, when you begin to accept yourself the way you are right now, you begin a new life with new possibilities that did not exist because you were so caught up in the struggle against reality that was all you could do. So I invite you to remember that now. Accepting what just happened, accepting what's happening, accepting my feelings about it, and then asking the question, once the mind is cleared, okay, what now? Okay, so for our benediction, as we move into our week now, may the message that we have heard come to mind often as we learn more and more to be like that Taoist farmer in the middle, letting things happen and not judging them one way or the other, but always open to all the possibilities, accepting things as they occur, accepting our feelings about them, and then asking, what is my possibility now? Becoming more powerful and effective people able to make changes for the better in this world. Thank you. Thank you so much.